My name is Thea Rademacher, and I'm the president of Flint Hills Publishing. Press I started over 10 years ago that as of today has published 116 books. And I'm honored to include in our catalog The Myth of No Big Deal. Beautiful cover. The subtitle is long, but it's very informative. It's healing from the overlooked impact of later life divorce on adult children and families. So it's an honor, honestly, to have published this important work and a joy to work with its author, Wendy Fisher House, PhD. Dr. House was a practicing psychologist for over 40 years with training in clinical and social psychology. Born in my hometown, Topeka, Kansas, she graduated from the University of Kansas, go Jayhawks, and then obtained her doctorate up north at the University of Michigan. During her years of private practice, she noticed an alarming trend, a growing number of stories that alerted her to the profound effect of parents divorcing after long marriages, marriages that were 20 years or more, and the serious impact that this was having on the entire family system, including grown children. She has come to realize that later life divorce is not a niche subject. It is a quiet epidemic affecting families across every demographic. So, Wendy, in a nutshell, this is a big, very comprehensive, very easy to read book, but can you tell us just briefly what this book is about?
Well, the effort behind this book is to really dispel the myth that later life divorce is no big deal, because it really is a big deal. It is happening. The trend of later life divorce is way up, so that what we're seeing now is while divorce trends in general are down, for people over 50, they've doubled. For people over 65, the divorce rate has tripled. So this is a big deal. It's happening to a lot of families, and the impact is also a big deal. So the point of the book is to, with compassion and concern for both the divorcing parents and their children, to talk about what's happening here and how the damage that is caused by any kind of divorce is minimized. So that's what it is in a nutshell, is really looking at both sides, not just the children, not just the parents, but the whole family system.
Great. Well, Wendy, when we were working on this book together, I shared with you the significant impact and benefits it had for me as an adult child of divorce, a divorce that took place over almost 45 years ago. And it made me realize that it was very significant and helped me understand my very intense feelings at the time. But why do you think that we tend to minimize the impact of divorce on adult children?
Well, and we do, and we're doing that maybe a little bit less now, but we do it because these children are adults, and many of the couples have waited until their children are out of the home, thinking that at that point it will be no big deal. These children are adults; they can handle anything. They've moved on with their own lives and whatever. And in fact, it is a big deal at any stage of life. And when we don't validate this, for even for someone like you, Thea, then you can go through years thinking, well, that was just me not handling it very well. I should have done better. I was an adult. And we have really invalidated the experience of adult children. In the course of my thinking about this, I have met more and more adults like yourself where the divorce was years ago. They never thought of it. They're surprised, why would I write a book about this? They went through this. And when we begin to talk about it, they all of a sudden understand the struggles they had at that period in their life were valid and legitimate and normal kinds of things that are going to happen, especially when nobody gives them any credit for going through something as difficult as this.
Well, it was very validating, and therefore it truly was healing. So I thank you for that. So, why is it helpful, in your opinion, to view divorcing parents and their adult children in the context of their life stage development? Maybe explain what we mean by life stage development and why you thought it was important to look at it that way.
Well, this is one of the things that as I started writing the book, all of a sudden, initially when I was writing it, I was more focused on the challenges for adult children and how we've ignored their issues. And as I got to writing it, I realized I really couldn't do the book without also caring about and thinking about what was going on for the parents. And in no way does that diminish what's going on for the other generation. But when we look at the parents, if they're at the younger age of divorcing parents who've been married for 20 or more years, there's still a lot of life left for them to rearrange their lives, maybe find a new partner, a new job, a new place to live. They have time. But if they're older, like this group that's divorcing over 65, they have much less time left. And what we know from Erik Erikson's 8 Ages of Man, and maybe people have heard of that, but it goes from birth all the way up to old age. And it's very different. And each of those stages has a unique set of challenges, no matter, whether you've done well in the earlier stages or not, there's still challenges that are coming. So here we've got parents who are either younger, older, or older as they're divorcing, and they've got plenty of challenges before this impact of divorce enters the picture. On the other side, here are their children who are, as we know from life stage development, they're not fully formed when they're adults. They're still developing an identity. They're still seeking out intimate relationships, whether those are intimate partners or intimate friendships. They're still working on identity and intimacy issues. So they've got a lot on their plate when suddenly they're hit with their parents' divorce. So it helps to just sort of understand what everybody's going through by looking at what stage they're at.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I've found is with all the challenges the parents are facing developmentally, it's hard to be real open to and aware of what's going on for your children. The same is true for the children. Their hands are full, their lives are full, developing identity and intimacy. And all of a sudden, here and now comes what's going on for their parents, that they really don't have a lot of compassion for what their parents are going through. Children are never as old as their parents. So by the time you get to be as old as your parents, lots of years have passed, old as they were at the time of the divorce. So there's really not a lot, they don't understand that. And the parents have forgotten how challenging life was in their 20s and 30s and 40s.
Mm, I think that's such wise observations, Wendy. What are the common mistakes that you think that parents who divorce later in life are making?
So to me, the most common one is really boundary violations. So if you think this is no big deal, then you're not aware that your children are having their own struggles around the divorce. But if you think they're adults, then you can treat them in ways you wouldn't to a younger child when you were going through a divorce. You may give them far too much information about personal things that you wouldn't have shared with a younger child. You may share things about marriage itself and how complicated that is, and specifics even about sexual aspects of your relationship that you wouldn't with a younger child, or at least would be less likely to do. So that's one of the main things, is that parents violate the parent-child boundary. And what that does is that makes it likely that that relationship itself, the parent-child relationship, could become frayed and even fractured at a time when nobody needs yet another loss. They're
Mm.
already losing the family that they knew and a lot of those complicated relationships. So that's the biggest issue I think that comes up for parents. The thing that's important though that I tried to do in the book is that even if you have made some mistakes like that, you violated boundaries, you used your children as confidants, you put them in the middle, and now you pick up the book and you realize, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. There are ways to own that and repair the relationship from that. And so this is one of the things in the book. I'm not just trying to say, isn't this awful, terrible thing that's happened, it can't be undone. It can't be undone, but it can be worked through and communication can be opened up. Even years later, it can be healing.
Well, I love your strong use of examples. And I know a lot of it's composite and, but you've had such a rich career, so many years of doing this kind of work. And to read the examples of other people, it it helped me to see myself in some of those examples. And also it was very, it was comforting in a way, to see your strong use of examples. And oftentimes, um, it was very healing for me as well to see the successes that the families achieved. So what paths do you think that people can take to have a healthy family structure, this new family structure after a gray divorce, as it's oftentimes referred to?
So I just want to say one thing about why I call it more later life divorce than gray, but I
Okay.
also use that term. But many of the parents aren't gray at that point. Maybe they
Yeah,
would be, but they
for one
literally
reason or
aren't.
another. Yeah.
And so I think we tend to forget about the parents that are, when we say gray divorce, we may be thinking of the oldest of the old, older of the old, but it really is a later life thing or gray divorce. But in terms of pathways, I think the most important thing that I try to emphasize throughout the book is that divorce is a process and not an event. And it's, we tend to think, oh, was there a divorce? How long ago was that? Well, there's stuff going on before the divorce. There's plenty of feelings and activities that go on after the divorce. So it's a long process. And the main thing is to give it time, I think, for the pathway to a new relationship. You need to give time for everybody to grieve the losses they've experienced. You need time for them to do their own healing. Family members don't heal at the same level. Some are ready to move on and some aren't ready to move on for a long time, maybe never. And we need to be respectful of every individual's healing cycle, that it isn't going to be identical to one's own. So the main pathway, whether it's a repartnered family or a single parent family, there's plenty of time for it to be a healthier family, especially if the reasons for divorce in the first place are due to some kind of trauma or very negative set of behaviors, some mental illness, some, um, substance abuse. It can be a healthier family if somebody has gotten out of a negative relationship. That parent who gets out may be better able to put together a healthy family, even a single parent family.
What surprised you, Wendy, the most during your research and your clinical work with regard to this topic?
I think what surprised me most is just how nobody sees it. I've recently, since the book's come out, I've shared it with a couple of friends and acquaintances who went through this years ago, who were the parents who went through this. And they've said, and these are bright people, educated people who read a lot, who think a lot. And surprising to me has been something with them, which I've seen with clients, but also with good friends, is just I never thought of it. That's what they'll say is, I never thought of what my kids were going through. I can't believe I missed it. But in the midst of everything else going on in their lives at that point, it's easy to miss. So that's what surprises me most. And the minute you start talking about it and reading about it and thinking about it, people get it like, oh, it is a big deal. It is. And so that's what I'm hoping this book is going to break through that myth and give people a chance to really validate their family's experience, however long ago that was.
Wendy, I've told you many times how impressed I am with the amount of research that you've put into this. Your experience is just is so clear, and your wisdom, I can tell you've thought a lot about this issue. So thank you for all the work that you've put into this project. I think it's just a really important book. Can you tell us about how the book is organized and suggestions for how the reader should approach the book?
Okay, so that's an interesting question because I tried to deal with it in as I wrote it because I got feedback from people as I would talk about it. When people are in the midst of this, they just want some answers. What do we do now? How can I avoid the problems that you say, could occur over the process of divorce? So I have kind of in the beginning a sense that if that's where you are now, here are the final two chapters. I have a chapter at the end for parents on that sort of summarizes the book, but gets right down to the recommendations, suggestions, possibilities on how to do things in a healthier way. And then a similar chapter for the adult children on how to take care of themselves. But the book itself, it seems, but I encourage people, once they've done that, go back and read the beginning, because the beginning of the book talks about why there is this trend in gray divorce or later life divorce and what the issues are for adult children who are barely out of the home, who are in the midst of their young adult choices and struggles, and those who are middle-aged with these elderly parents who are divorcing. So I go through all of that and I talk about boundary violations. And a lot of that can seem pretty heavy if what you sort of want is to get to the how-tos and what. But I think it's important to put it all in context. And once you've gotten yourself sort of to a place where you're feeling more on top of things, to go back and read from the beginning and put your experience in a context so you understand it better, and you also give yourself a sense of validity for what you're feeling.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. And I want to encourage anyone who has been touched by this issue. This is an excellent, very accessible book for you to read or to gift to someone that you think that could benefit from it. The book's available on Amazon or bookshop.org, or you could ask your local library or bookstore to order the book for you. You could find it wherever books are sold. And it is so helpful to authors if you can leave an honest review for them, either on Amazon or Google, or send me a blurb or a review, and we'll make sure that we share it. My email is thea@flinthillspublishing.com. And Wendy, I know that you're going to be available for book clubs, for speaking events, and tell everyone, what is your big new beautiful website that you have now? What is your website called?
Okay, so I have a website that's it's very obvious. I mean, from the book itself, it's just wendyfisherhouse.com is the website. And from there, you
Excellent.
can link to my email if you want to do that.
Yes.
And I would love to hear feedback about people's experience and what they feel was helpful, what they wish there'd been more of or less of, I guess. A little too late for that, but it's still very helpful to know if this captures your experience in a respectful way.
Well, Wendy, I'm excited to see where you take this project forward. And thank you so much. We're so glad you're part of the Flint Hills Publishing family. Thank you.
Thank you.